When you're in your mid-20s, you really only have three options.
Get married.
Get a master's.
Or run a marathon.
Hi, I'm Francis.
And I'm Brian.
And welcome to this week's episode of the Zone 2 podcast,
where we explore all there is to learn about the world of running. This is just a friendly reminder. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. We want to hear your thoughts, and you can follow us on Instagram at the Zone 2 Podcast.
and find all of our links there as well.
It's true. We have a tree of links.
Yeah. To our Stravas, our personal Stravas even.
I took those off though.
Okay, you didn't want to tell people where we were all the time?
Well, you can see on the link tree who clicks what, and nobody had clicked on mine, and one person had clicked on yours, and I was a little jealous, so I was like, we should just take these off.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, Francis, it has been a pretty huge couple of weeks for the world of running.
Yeah.
Last week was the Boston Marathon.
It was.
This morning was the London Marathon.
True.
We're seeing records beaten. We're seeing new limits reached.
Yeah.
But more importantly, how is your training for your marathon going?
Pretty average this week, so definitely not in the elite fields that we saw at the Boston Marathon or the London Marathon. I'm not putting up Jacob Kablimo's times, let me tell you that.
Not yet. Give it a couple months maybe.
Well, that guy's been running since he was 1 or something. But
he was running before he was walking.
He was running. Yeah, that's what they say. You got to run before you walk, especially when it comes to running.
Who says that?
Everyone says that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I had a pretty average week, to be honest. I kind of just did my normal cadence, I guess. My 8-mile easy runs, 9-mile easy runs, and threw in a couple speed workouts. I did a pretty intense workout yesterday. So we're recording on Sunday. So my Saturday workout was 2 by 5 miles at marathon goal pace, which was really good. But
wow.
Yeah, I think from like a cardio standpoint, I felt really good. But from a joint and muscle standpoint, I felt like I was lacking, and I don't know if that was because of lack of sleep, because I went to my roommate's birthday party the night before and was up till like 2 a.m.
I saw some karaoke happening. Is that true?
Yes, I did not sing, but I witnessed some
That is
karaoke.
shocking that you didn't sing. Francis, you literally did a cappella.
Well, I had to go to bed, so
okay.
Yeah, I pieced out a little early, much to the chagrin of everyone else there, but I had a workout on Wednesday as well.
Okay.
And Wednesday coincides with my run club. So I run sometimes. I try to run pretty regularly with the Brighton Bangers. And they have 3 different routes that you can kind of choose. They're like a, pick your pleasure type of run club. So they've got a 3-mile loop, a 4-mile loop, and a 6-mile loop. And I usually
pick your punishment, you mean?
Yeah, pick your punishment. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. And so for my workout on Wednesday, I had a 2 by 3 mile interval workout. And I was like, oh, well, that's, I know how to do math. That's 6 miles. Why don't I just go to the Bangers and do the workout portion, aside from the warm up and cool down, why don't I just do that workout interval at Bangers? Because there'll be people I know. I can hang out with people. Maybe it'll be a little bit of a motivator. Who knows? So I decided to lace up my speedy shoes, my race day shoes. I put on my singlet and I had like full race kit.
That's crazy showing up to run.
I know. We make fun of people like that, but honestly, it was really hot, and I didn't want to go like completely shirtless because I thought that would be weird. So I showed up, and we started, and I didn't see a single person the entire time.
So did you even go?
No, I went out at like a 6:30 pace and pretty much held that the entire time for both intervals. And I was like, it was a great workout and I felt really strong, but I didn't hang out with anyone. Obviously wasn't talking to anyone.
It kind of defeats the purpose of going to run club a little bit if you don't get the chance to actually talk with anybody or even really see anybody. Yeah,
and that's kind of like what I was thinking. Was like, okay, I could have done this on my own. I didn't have to wait till 7 o'clock to do this. What's the point of going to run club? Obviously run club, the whole point is that it's social.
I think what I like about going to Heartbreak on Thursdays is even if I'm doing a different workout than what they have scheduled, because the workouts are on the track, you can do your workout adjacent to other people.
Yeah.
So even if you're doing a different workout, you still see them twice a lap if you're going around the track like in the opposite direction, which I feel like makes it nice to at least see friendly faces. So even if you're out there doing a workout by yourself, you still see other people.
I agree.
But it's harder if you're not on a track. You're not
yeah.
going to see everybody.
Yeah, and even though it was like a loop and I was doing the loop multiple times, for some reason the timing didn't line up. So as soon as one group would go through, I would go through after them, and then we just like wouldn't cross paths, which...
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it was a little sad.
You should do the loop backwards next time.
Honestly, I should have just run slower. I should have just run it normally. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was a good week. The weather's nicer, definitely hotter. So taking that into account, trying to run either later when it's not as hot or earlier before work and that sort of thing. So trying to get used to that, definitely interesting. I'm kind of jealous that you already had your marathon because you don't have to worry about training anymore.
We say jealous, but I'm a little jealous that you get to run every day right now.
Well, yeah, but how was your week of training?
Francis, I barely did anything this week.
That sounds nice.
It was really weird, honestly, having so much more free time than I've had for the last 5 months or so. I waited until Friday to go for my first run. I just did a 4-mile easy loop, put the shoes back on, felt really nice to be running, a little bit creaky, like a little bit slow to get going, but I feel like 6 days was way long enough for me to wait, and I kind of couldn't wait to get back out running. I did play soccer yesterday, Saturday morning in the rain.
How'd that go?
I mean, I had a ton of fun. I played pretty badly, and I also am definitely finding that marathon fitness is very different from soccer fitness. So soccer obviously is a lot of quick accelerations, decelerations, direction changes, which marathon training and being marathon fit, you are in great shape to run at a steady pace in one direction without any drastic changes. So
yeah,
definitely different types of strength, I would say. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that a little bit more.
I remember you were saying your marathon, the second half, the out and back, had like a turnaround at a cone. Did you feel like that, even that was too much of like a direction change?
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, like make it a loop.
Yeah, seriously. Like make it a cul-de-sac at least.
It was like a wide turn, and I still was like, oh my God.
It is crazy how you get into like a rhythm, and any deviation from that just throws you off.
I was going to say though, so now that I'm taking a little bit of a break from running, I'm starting to think about maybe doing another full in the fall.
Ooh.
We can talk about that later. But
Philly?
London? Twist my arm.
London next year?
I entered the lottery, did you?
So did I.
Okay, good. But I think I'm using this break from running to kind of focus on my diet and making some dietary changes that will hopefully set me up for some more success in cycles to come. So throughout my training cycle, I think because the calorie demand of training is so high, I feel like I was relying really heavily on like processed carbohydrates just to get calories in my body, just because that's easy, it's readily available, it's the cheapest food that you can buy. But I really don't think that in terms of like optimal fuel, that's not the best fuel to be putting in the tank. And then on race day, I think I hit the wall early, and I talked a little bit about this last week, how I think I was just poorly fueled for the marathon. So I think looking ahead to the next training cycle, I think one of the things I really want to prioritize is nutrition. So I have been doing some reading about diets for runners, and I think I'm going to give the Mediterranean diet a go with just an emphasis on natural ingredients, non-processed foods. Maybe I'll find some studies, maybe find a guest to come on who can shed a little bit more insight on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I know that like as a runner, your body is your vehicle. And I've said this in the past that like eating crappy food is like the equivalent of putting low octane gasoline into a performance car. You got to keep those cylinders greased.
You think I'm a performance car?
Yeah. Well, you're dressed in red like a Ferrari now.
So are you.
This is true. Yeah, Liverpool won the Premier League today, so
they did. Shout out to Mo Salah.
Hell yeah.
Should I do that?
Yeah.
Introduce the guest. All right.
I feel like we've bantered long enough. The suspense is killing me.
We've bantered plenty. The suspense is certainly killing me. So I feel like we have marathoners on every week, which makes it seem a little bit like it's not an accomplishment to run in a marathon. But
yeah, it seems like everyone's doing it.
Yeah, everyone who's coming on the podcast has run a marathon, but it really is a huge deal.
It's almost like we have a bias as a podcast.
It's true. It's a selection bias. We only have people on the podcast who have ran marathons.
It is a running podcast, after all.
But on that note, let's introduce 2022 Boston Marathon finisher Savannah Gigandet to the podcast. Welcome, Savannah.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to come on. We're both super excited. So this is a running podcast, but you run. You also are a hybrid athlete, though. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made your way into both of those?
Yeah, so I grew up a competitive gymnast, so I've always been super active. I trained at a pretty elite level, like 25, 30 hours a week for like the better part of my life, in all honesty. I competed in college at Ithaca, and I competed for 2 years before medically retiring. And I kind of got into running and lifting as a result of being done with college sports. I think running originally came into play a little bit earlier. I had gone through my freshman year of college. My training style as a college gymnast was incredibly different than my training style as a optional USAG gymnast. So college was a lot more like you kind of go in, you already have your skills, you're training, you're like kind of maintaining your level of fitness, but there was not the same, I don't want to call it trauma, but
like intensity.
but intensity.
Yeah.
Like I remember being a optional gymnast and hating running. And I think it was largely because it was used as like a punishment. Like we would go in to practice and like our running days would be like, we're going in the field and we're sprinting for 30 minutes. It was not uncommon to be throwing up. Like I remember multiple occasions, like every like couple of weeks, it'd be like, oh, it's a really bad running day. And we would be running for the trash cans.
Jeez. I feel like too, I mean, you're like, what, the fifth person who's come on the podcast who's like, yeah, I used to run as punishment. And then now it's like what you do, like you identify as a runner. That's super interesting. When you say optional gymnast, could you define that?
Yeah, so gymnastics there's different levels and tiers. So lower, it's compulsory. So you have basically like set routines and skills that you have to do. As you get higher in the levels, then you're an optional gymnast and you have more options essentially. Like there's certain skill requirements you need to have, like values of skills, but you're basically building your routine based on what you're best at for each event. Yeah. So it gets like a little bit harder, a lot harder, but there's more variety essentially with like what you're able to do and what skills like work for you and your body type and abilities.
So when you transitioned from gymnastics to running, was that like an easy transition? Did it feel natural, or did you find that there was like a stark difference between like the fitness types?
I think it was definitely a difference between fitness types. And I think I kind of started running before I was really done with gymnastics. After my freshman year, I was your classic, like I gained the freshman 15. I kind of started running more consistently because I wanted to lose weight and I wanted to like get back into like more like lean gymnastics shape. But when I started, it was really hard because gymnastics was very like quick twitch, anaerobic. Your longest routine is only 2 minutes long. Like your floor routine is 2 minutes and you're doing some dance and then a really powerful big tumbling pass and then back to dance. So it's anaerobic versus running, like getting into cardiovascular shape to be running for a long period of time. It was very different, but I honestly loved it. And I think originally I kind of was using running as like this weight loss tool. And then eventually it transitioned into more of like, this was like my mental like safe space and sanity. Like I loved just being able to put on my shoes and go out and not think about anything or think about absolutely everything and just kind of like use it as my me time really. Now I really do use running as my me time. It's less of like a source of activity and more of like almost like a therapy for me.
I think that's something that Francis and I have both kind of felt with running, where it really is in many ways meditative, especially when you're running a long distance. You do get in this flow state where it's just you and the miles in front of you. And when you're putting one foot in front of the other for miles and miles and miles, I feel like it's so easy to kind of just let your mind wander. And I know I use it kind of as my decompression time almost, as silly as that is to say, because you are working hard when you're running, obviously, but it's a different kind of effort versus when you're like sitting doing homework or something like that.
And I think that's why I really love it so much, because gymnastics was so complex. Like you're doing 12 different things, like you're doing a routine of a bunch of different skills. Each skill is so technical, especially when you're at that higher level. You're thinking about like 800 different things of, I need to squeeze my like stomach. I need to point my toes. I need to have my arms by my ears. I need to run at this speed or jump to the bar at this angle. Like there's so many little components and details that you're always like, you have to always be on. And it was really nice to just run. And I'm like, I can just keep going. And was just like really enjoyable, like the simplicity of it, I think.
Yeah, I think too, like you talk about gymnastics, there's such an emphasis on form, whereas like with running, your form could be terrible, and yeah, maybe improving your form might help you be faster, but at the end of the day, you're just judged on like how fast you do something, or even just accomplishing something in the first place, like for example, running a marathon.
Which is a great segue. So Savannah, you ran Boston in 2022 for charity. What inspired you to take that on, and what charity did you support?
So I ran for Dana-Farber. After I finished my gymnastics career, I ended up transferring, and I went to UMass Lowell. When I transferred, my credits kind of got a little funky, and I ended up having a December graduation date. So coming up on my graduation, feeling like every other college student, I think, feeling like really lost, not really having a direction, knew I needed to do something. I'm a very like goal-oriented person, I would say. So I was just felt very lost that I was like, what am I doing with my life? And my mom actually, one of her friends was worked for Dana-Farber, and she was like, what if you ran the Boston Marathon for Dana-Farber? She just kind of planted the seed, and it kind of timed out where I was graduating, and then the applications for Dana-Farber came out. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to submit an application and see what happens. And I had run the Bay State half marathon earlier that year in October. So I was already in relatively good running shape. And I'm like, I've never run a marathon before, but if I can do a half, I can do a full. I just kind of figured I'd just send it. So I filled out the application, and I ended up getting accepted and on the team, and really just ran with it from there.
Quite literally.
Yeah, at that point, I feel like you're accepted, you're committed.
Yeah.
For the Boston Marathon, you have a chance to run it, like you're doing it.
Yeah, and it was such an incredible opportunity. I think the fundraising was definitely tricky, but it was so rewarding, and it was so great to be doing something for a bigger purpose other than just myself. And so I really enjoyed it. Helped motivate me for training too, I think, because I was at a time when I definitely wasn't in the best like mental spot of my life, but having like knowing that I was doing this big task or this big accomplishment for like other people, that was really like a good motivator.
I think that's been a sentiment that's emulated by the other charity runners that we've had on the podcast so far, where they talk about how when training gets hard, they find themselves thinking about the cause that they're supporting as that external motivator to help keep them pushing forward going through the training cycle. That's really cool. And how was your experience at the actual race itself?
Hands down, best experience of my life. I had a blast. I did way better than I expected. I came out of the gate really fast, I will say, and I was like, whew, gotta pump the brakes a little bit.
Seems like a common experience. Oops.
Yeah, I was just so hyped up on the adrenaline of it, the excitement, and I'm definitely a competitor. Like, I thrive off of that energy, and just having so many people, like the whole crowd. I had friends that came and watched. My parents came and watched. Like every time I started to be like, ooh, I'm getting a little tired here, I would see somebody with a sign or like see one of my friends, and then I was just like amped up again. Yeah. So I honestly did way better than I expected, and I really didn't feel like I hit a wall or anything until like mile 21. Really nice. Yeah, like I really got to mile 21. I was like, ooh, now I'm starting to hurt a little bit.
So you made it all the way up Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Wow.
And then at that point, it's literally all downhill from there.
Yeah. And then at like mile 25, I had my headphones in, and I had my texts off, but for some reason, one of my text messages popped through, and it was my friend just messaged me, what, 1 more mile, like full send, you're still on pace. And for whatever, like I'm just like having that message come through right at that time, I was like, oh yeah. And then I like cooked through. It was incredible.
That's awesome. It's interesting to hear about athletes who transition to running, because even though the sports, gymnastics versus running, are so different, I feel like a lot of like the mentality of it, whether it's training, whether it's completing a goal like a marathon, is very similar. So while it might be difficult to translate the fitness from one sport to the other, it's very easy to transition the mentality. And people who are committed to one sport are easily transitioned over to another one in terms of like their commitment. And you are also like a hybrid athlete. So I've heard the term hybrid athlete come up a lot, especially like on my Instagram reels and that sort of thing. And some people joke about it as like, oh, like I'm a terrible runner and a mid lifter, like I'm a hybrid athlete. And I feel like also some people call it the reincarnation of CrossFit. But I would love to hear from an actual hybrid athlete, like what does it mean to be a hybrid athlete? Is it like a phase? Is it like a fad? Are people just kind of jumping on the bandwagon? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah, so I think being a hybrid athlete is absolutely a buzzword right now, but I do think that if you're a CrossFitter, you are a hybrid athlete. I think it really is a generalized term of people that do aerobic activity and anaerobic, or like a lifting sport. So I feel like I've kind of gone through a bunch of different phases in my fitness. So I have been in phases where I've just been running. I've been in phases where I was lifting super heavy. I worked at a strength and conditioning gym. So I was a strength coach there, and I got really into Olympic lifting and powerlifting kind of styles of training. So I did that for a while. I did not like how my body felt or looked really doing either one of those separately. So I found that I loved running, but I also really loved how strong I was when I was lifting. So I kind of have balanced out. I think right now I'm at a very balanced phase of I'm running consistently. I try to get like 25 miles a week, and then I do like 3 to 4 lifts a week. Okay. So I think in general, like being your hybrid athlete is somebody that is really doing both consistently, and not necessarily that like you have to be doing, I think you tend to like stray more to one side. Like you might be in like doing a little bit more lifting and then a little more running. But it really depends on what your goals and like training, if you're training for anything. Like right now, I'm not training for anything. So I feel like I'm pretty split 50-50.
Would you say that there's like a distinction between lifting for the sake of lifting versus like lifting for the sake of injury prevention? Because I know a lot of runners will also lift, but for the sole purpose of improving their running or decreasing the likelihood of injury.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more intention behind it if you're training for injury prevention. I think you're doing a little bit more athletic based stuff. If you're lifting as like a power lifter, obviously you're trying to hit these certain metrics, these numbers, you're trying to put up heavier weight. So you're going to be a little bit more dialed in that way. Mm-hmm. So I think that there definitely is a difference because you're going to approach your lifts a lot differently versus like if you're a runner and you're lifting for injury prevention, or your primary focus is going to be that run, and then your weight and what you're lifting doesn't matter as much, versus if you're really focused on getting super strong, you're going in those lifts with like a ton of intention of I'm doing my warm-up set, I'm hitting this max effort, then I'm backing down, I'm doing this percentage. Like there's more intention behind how you're structuring your lifts too, I think.
I mean, I used to lift and then I started running and then now I don't lift at all. I feel like I'm very much one or the other. And I admire people who can do both because I feel like it's hard to sometimes find that balance.
It's impressive to be able to find the balance, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky to do, but I also think for me, I get bored otherwise. Like I'm so used to, I'm very go. And so I love that some days I can wake up and if I don't feel like doing a lift, I can just go out for this run. Or if I don't feel like doing a run, like let me go lift. And that's really nice right now because I'm not training for anything. So I don't have to be as intentional. Like as long as I hit my lifts and I hit my runs and I'm feeling good, that's all I can ask for.
So Savannah, you mentioned before that you said you like how you felt and how you look when you're both running and lifting. So I feel like this is a nice segue into the role that body image plays in both of these sports. So Francis and I have talked about this, and we think that fitness can be incredibly empowering. It can give you a sense of community, whether it's through your run club or your gym, or a sense of self-belief in what you're capable of. But I think there are also parts of it that can be really toxic, and that's something that you shared a little bit about your experience as a gymnast. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on how body image is talked about both in the running and in the lifting worlds.
I think growing up in a body weight sport or a body-based sport made me hyper aware of my body and how I look and how other people look and how other people perceive me. And I think that mindset can be really, really intense in the fitness industry, whether you're running, whether you're lifting, because unfortunately, I think we do live in a society where we value appearance. And I think it's sometimes hard to devalue how we look, especially on social media. And especially when you're in a sport like running, where there's that concept of faster or lighter is better, lighter is faster. In lifting, when you're wanting to appear a certain way, if you're going for like that aesthetic bodybuilding appearance. And then mob mentality is very dangerous, where you start to get all these messages. You see like, oh, I'm going on a cut right now, or I'm losing weight, I'm trying to look this certain way, or I want to be faster, or just having like those little messages in your mind can really affect the way you feel about yourself and the way that you feel about food and performance.
And I feel like you could really internalize it too, especially, I mean, you talk about growing up being a gymnast. If you're exposed to this environment from a young age where you are internalizing these external cues of feeling like you have to look a certain way or eat a certain way or weigh a certain amount, it is probably super difficult to unlearn that.
Yeah, it's definitely really difficult to unlearn those behaviors. And I remember a specific comment when I came back from my freshman year of college. My coach had looked me up and down and said, wow, you look really womanly now. With that like concept of, or that intention of, wow, you've gained weight. And it was a negative thing. It wasn't like, oh, wow, like you look really healthy, or like you look really strong. It was, are your coaches going to be able to spot you? Are they going to be able to, are you still going to be able to flip around the way you did? Like, it was just like such a negative, that like weight gain was such a bad thing. And that honestly was kind of the trigger of, I went down this path and I wanted to lose weight, and it started out as like a very healthy thing for me, and it spiraled so quickly.
So I know you've in the past been pretty open about your experience with an eating disorder. Would you, and I know you kind of touched on it briefly just now, but would you be willing to share a little bit about that, especially as a woman and as an athlete?
Yeah, definitely. I think talking about eating disorders and mental health is just so incredibly important. And I've always been very open about my experience, because I think that it took me a really long time to come to terms with being diagnosed and actually like recovering. So I was diagnosed with anorexia and orthorexia my sophomore year of college. And
what is anorexia and orthorexia?
Yep. Sorry. So anorexia is a inherent fear of food, inherent fear of weight gain. So your typical like presentation is you're dropping a lot of weight fast. You build up these food rules. I was tracking calories like super obsessively. And then orthorexia is similar, but it's more of a fear of being unhealthy. So for me, my eating disorder was all about wanting to be perfect and healthy. And I became so afraid of anything that I deemed unhealthy. Like I got to a point where I was afraid of eating a banana because I was afraid of the sugar in it.
Interesting.
And it was like, I found like these messages and this and that on like social media, and the way that I had teammates talking about food and the way that my coaches would talk about food. And so I built up all of these like food rules per se, and I didn't even realize it really. Like at the time, it just kind of, it snowballed so quickly, and it started out as something like, oh, I'm just like eating healthier now, I'm eating cleaner. And it just snowballed.
I wonder too, because I definitely know people who have had similar experiences. How does one, especially when you get that far down into that space where mentally you have all those food rules and stuff, how do you get yourself out of that? How do you change your relationship with food?
It was a really long process. And I think the biggest thing with eating disorders and eating disorder recovery is that you're not going to recover unless you want to. Because I also refused to believe, I thought I was fine. Like I was completely adamant that I was not sick at all. And what happened really is, so I was away in New York at college, and my parents had come down to watch me compete. It was my first meet of the season. And they took one look at me and they were like, oh, because they hadn't seen me in like 3 months, and I had lost probably like 25, 30 pounds, like a significant amount of weight. And I thought that I looked really healthy and good, and I was competing the best I ever had. But they looked at me and they're like, ooh, you need some help here. And they were super, super supportive. I think at that time, none of us really knew that I was, like, I hadn't been diagnosed yet. I wasn't anorexic. I say that I wasn't anorexic, but I was. While I was on campus, I got connected with a dietitian that I had to go see weekly. I still refused to believe that I was sick. I still thought that I was fine. I really was like, I don't need to gain weight, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was so in denial. And I knew that I wasn't mentally healthy. I knew I was like dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. I never really felt like I had an eating disorder. And my parents too were like, once you come home, once you're out of this like super toxic training environment, you'll be better. And I got home and I lost even more weight. And I'm really lucky, I think, that I presented so physically sick, because I dealt with pretty severe bradycardia, so low heart rate. My resting heart rate was like in the 30s.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
Like it
That's
was
too low.
Too much too low. And it really wasn't until that point I was seeing a therapist, I was seeing a dietitian, I was seeing my PCP like once a week at least, because I had to go in and get orthostatic vitals done or check my blood pressure and heart rate and all that stuff. And I got a call from my therapist one night at like 9 p.m. and she was like, your lab results just came back. You need to go to the emergency department right now. Because I was so physically sick. And I don't really think until that point that I was sitting in the emergency room that I realized that I needed to change something and that I was actually having a problem. So that was kind of like my aha moment. And up to this point, I was still working out all the time. Along with my eating disorder, I was also like diagnosed with exercise addiction. Like that was because I was exercising so obsessively. So I was super restricting my food and exercising so obsessively. And I'd be so anxious. Like if I didn't work out that day, I would be so anxious. And part of my recovery was I had to completely stop exercising. It was 6 months of nothing. And that was like the craziest. I think that was like honestly the biggest thing that helped me, because I realized that I didn't need to move my body so extremely to still be healthy. And so it's kind of, it like made me actually, I think, fall in love more with like running and being appreciative of like performance. And that was a big thing too, of once I stopped exercising, I started to gain weight again. I was really working with like my dietitian. I had a lot of support from my family. That was a huge, huge thing for me. And I also wanted to recover because I wanted to feel good again. I wanted to be able to do all the things that I love. And I think that once I made that decision of my life is going to be so much better than the size of my body or this sense of control I was feeling about food, that's when I was really able to like get out of it.
So you talked about a 6-month hiatus from exercise while you could get your nutrition and your weight back under control so you were physically not ill. I'm curious what your experience was then reintroducing exercise into your life now. Obviously, we talked about you being a hybrid athlete. Exercise is a very important part of your daily routine now. How did you find a way to reintroduce that in a healthy and sustainable way?
With a lot of support, for sure. I think I changed my style of training a lot, and rather than trying to focus on like calories or performance metrics, I was doing it for enjoyment more and more of a social thing. So I started doing yoga with my sister. I would only go to the gym and work out if I was with other people, because everything before I would do it alone. I only worked out alone. I would like hide workouts because I knew that I kind of had a problem that I was doing it too much. But I think the transition of like slowly reintroducing it and slowly doing it as like for enjoyment and for social connection was a big thing for me, because now I feel like I go to the gym and I love when I go to the gym and I see all my gym friends, or I love when I am able to go on a run with a couple people or some friends. Like, it's just so much more rewarding.
And you're doing it because you want to, not because you feel like you need to.
That's a huge thing too.
So you mentioned with a lot of support. I'm curious for friends or loved ones or training partners out there who might know somebody who is struggling with an eating disorder. What are some ways that they can do their part to be supportive of your journey and of your recovery without being intrusive or without being triggering?
I think it really depends on the person, and it really depends on where they're at in their recovery. I think if it's somebody that is in denial like I was, you don't want to hear it. Like, I was not a nice person when I was like sick, because I knew in the back of my mind that I had a problem, but I didn't want to hear it from anybody else. But I do think that sometimes a little, like for me, a little tough love went a long way. Like, kind of my parents being like, no, you're eating this banana right now and you're doing this and you have, like, kind of calling me out on my BS a little bit was helpful, which is what I needed. But I think also just being gentle and like understanding that it's a disease, it's a sickness, and that it's very person dependent of like how they're going to respond to you. So that's kind of if like somebody's in denial. I think when somebody is in active recovery, really just asking and figuring out like what their triggers are. Like for me, it was really helpful when I was able to sit down and eat a meal with somebody. If I went out to like go get coffee with a friend, if they weren't eating anything, I wouldn't eat either. So having friends that would be like, hey, I'm going to order this muffin. Do you want some of it with me? That was super helpful. Or like not talking about calories or food in that way. Like, my whole family kind of knew that talking about healthy, unhealthy, or saying things like that were not helpful to me. So they were really good about not speaking about food in like good or bad manners, or like basically devaluing it, I think was really helpful.
So this is obviously not an isolated problem. This affects a lot of people. So for anyone who's listening who is struggling with this journey of their own, there are a lot of resources out there, and we will be linking them in the show notes. So if you want to take a look at that. But Savannah, what is one thing that you've learned from your journey?
I think the biggest thing is that life is so much better and more enjoyable when you're not obsessing about your body, and that when it comes down to it, your body is the least interesting thing about you. And it's so important to place your emphasis on your relationships, your knowledge, your skills, your hobbies, your passions, and valuing all these other things that make you this complete person, rather than just focusing on how your body looks or what you're eating or what you're even accomplishing. And that really, your body is just a vessel for your soul. It's for how you make other people feel. It's how you feel about yourself and treat yourself and other people. That really is the most important thing. And I think that like understanding that and coming to terms with that was just so huge in my recovery, where I'm not placing as much emphasis on how I look or anymore.
I think when you look at elite athletes too, and running is a great example, I feel like it's really all of the elite marathoners, all the elite distance runners have a very specific body type. And I think it would be so easy to look at that and say, oh, I don't look that way. My dimensions are different. Every single person's body is different. And you could look at that and say, oh, maybe running isn't for me. I don't have the body of a runner. But I think a theme that Francis and I really believe in, and something that I really appreciate about the running community in Boston, is how there isn't this one-size-fits-all mentality about running. And what's so cool about this city, and I think what's really cool about the community aspects of the sport in general, is anybody can be a runner, and it doesn't matter what you look like. And there are so many more things that you get out of it rather than just trying to look a certain way. But I really appreciate you sharing. I know that this is not easy to talk about, but I really appreciate you being open and willing to share your experience with an eating disorder. And like Francis said, we will be linking some resources in the show notes and on our Instagram for anyone listening who either themselves or knows somebody who may be struggling with disordered eating or body image.
So we talk about, obviously it doesn't matter what your body looks like. What does matter is what you're wearing on your feet. This is a running podcast. What kind of shoes are you wearing? You think that's a good transition?
That's so good.
I speak for myself. I speak for Brian as well.
Yeah.
When I say that we care very much about what we're wearing on our feet when it comes to running and how it looks. Because I think that, if you're wearing a cool pair of shoes, you're taking at least 10 seconds off your time, guaranteed. So, Savannah, what are you wearing on your feet for training and for racing?
So I am a Hoka girl. I absolutely love my Hokas. I used to wear New Balance, and when I was training for Boston, I was getting a lot of hamstring issues and tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis and hamstring tendinosis. I went to a running store, Whirlaway Sports, and I got a foot scan, and they did like the gait assessment and everything. They recommended the Gaviota Hokas. As soon as I started wearing those, all of my hamstring issues cleared up, and they were wonderful. So I tried and true. I stuck with the Hokas. I'm actually wearing the Arahi 7s right now, and I really like those. I think they're good for my longer distance runs. And then I have the Solomars, which I do for if I'm doing like a HIIT workout or something, or more of like my lifting workouts or like athletic days if I'm doing like jumping around and stuff. But definitely a Hoka girl.
Nice.
So, Savannah, we met in school like a year ago, and you were probably one of the first agents who kind of pressured me into getting back into running. And I had a pair of running shoes from my REI days, and they were a pair of Hokas too, and they didn't last me too long, but I do think fondly about the first shoes that I hit the 100-mile mark in, and now I'm like 4 pairs of shoes later and hundreds of miles on each of them.
Honestly, I feel like I keep rotating through different brands. Like my first running shoes were Hokas. A couple years ago, I had the Bondi 8s. Now they have the Bondi 9s. So those are deprecated shoes at this point. But yeah, no, they're like Hokas are great.
Yeah, that's an important representation. I feel like we haven't had any Hoka before.
Yeah. We've had Brooks, we've had Nike, we've got
a lot of
Adidas.
Yeah.
First ever Hoka.
There you go.
Very excited. Would you ever go for the CeeLos for a race shoe, carbon plated?
I want to try them so badly. I think when I was going to say, when I have nurse money, I definitely will. But that's not my journey for a couple months at least.
and then it's going to be carbon plated shoes out the wazoo.
It will be.
Fastest nurse on the floor.
Yeah, I feel like we should normalize wearing Alpha Flies to work.
Oh my God. Isn't like the whole point of wearing sneakers, like as a nurse, to have like the most comfortable shoes to be standing in all day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of nurses
So
do
not
wear
Alpha Flies.
They could be comfortable. I don't know. Depends on your.
Not a lot of heel support, I feel
That's
like.
true.
Yeah.
Are you a Hoka's at work girl?
I am.
There you go.
Yep.
Do you think Hokas are overprescribed? I think they
We don't
are.
know. We're not getting into
I don't
this.
know.
I think they're great shoes. I think, though, that doctors and everyone in the medical community is obsessed. They're like, oh, your back hurts?
Well, they look good,
Hokas.
too.
Oh, your marriage is falling apart? Hokas. Like, no
Honestly,
matter what, Hokas will solve it.
Hokas will solve
Eating
all your
disorder,
problems.
Hoka's. Too soon.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God.
That's so good.
Well, that's all we have time for.
Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But Savannah, thank you so much for coming on the pod and for sharing your knowledge and your experiences with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Before we take off, though, Francis, you told me that you have a fun fact.
I do have a fun fact. This actually kind of goes with what you were saying about your Mediterranean diet.
Oh.
So there are areas in the world known as blue zones where people live longer and healthier lives on average and have high concentrations of centenarians, or people who live to or over the age of 100. So there are a lot of factors that are believed to contribute to this, including the warmer climate and emphasis on social structures and interaction, as well as the Mediterranean diet. And this can be seen in places like Sardinia in Italy and Icaria in Greece.
So you're telling me that if I stick to this Mediterranean diet, I'm going to live to 100?
You're going to live to 150.
Okay, I'm going to go buy processed foods right now.
They're like, oh boy. Thank you all for listening to the Zone 2 podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at the Zone 2 podcast. You can catch new episodes every Wednesday streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.